Please remain seated. The show will begin in 3, 2...
Like a Hellcat! For more awesome content, like and subscribe now.
It had been a rough few weeks since the horrific ordeal. The night that Kenji had met his fate at the hands of a yokai. Suki remained secluded in her room for hours on end, not eating much and hardly speaking. In the meantime, I had been doing future research on Hanako-san, sitting over at my office desk and sipping a hot cup of tea. I asked Suki often about the details regarding Kenji's disappearance. She didn't like to talk about it much, just gave vague answers. We never went to the police about what happened that night at the school, because we feared we'd face some sort of punishment, seeing as we had broken the law. Apparently, the tale of Hanako's ghost goes as far back as the 1950s, then regaining popularity in the 80s and 90s. There are a few variations of how Hanako died. One is that she was chased by a madman, and she had hid in the third stall on the third floor of the girls' bathroom. But her killer soon discovered her and she was murdered. This happened during holiday, and nobody found her until a while later. The second is that she was a student during the Pacific War, and she had been playing hide-and-seek with her friends. She had been hiding in the third stall in the third floor girls' bathroom, and unknowingly, there had been the sound of air raid sirens going off, and the poor girl hadn't heard the noise. At this point, the other students, most of her classmates and dearest friends, had already evacuated to an air raid shelter, and there was an explosion that struck the building she was in, causing a fire spread, and little Hanako had been burned alive inside of the bathroom. According to other sources, other versions claim she was a victim of constant abuse, either by her parents or by bullies at school, and she committed suicide in that particular bathroom stall, or that a pit latrine at the school was left open by mistake, and she fell in and drowned. It is said if you go on the third floor to the third stall of the girls' bathroom and knock on the stall door 3 times, asking for Hanako-san, she will be summoned. Stupidly, I wanted to test this theory, but I knew that there was the risk I might get seriously injured, or I may not walk out alive. I had just left the apartment without telling Suki where I was going, and I brought along with me my video camera. I was going to get exact footage of my interaction with the yokai to settle this once and for all. I needed closure. I know Suki had been through so much trauma. A part of me really didn't want to believe a yokai was responsible for Kenji's supposed death. I had entered the school the same way as before, through the back door as I treaded the whole 50 yards on the old soccer field, which was located by a set of swings and a play structure. I pressed play on the camcorder and eyed the decaying remnants all around me of what was left of the school gymnasium, that furthermore wasn't affected by the harsh elements of moisture from the rain. Although it appeared that the roof itself had started falling apart, and I was actually afraid it was going to collapse down on me. I then left the gymnasium, and I shuddered as I had gone by the boys' shower room, remembering Shawa Abake, the child apparition that had peeling skin that blistered and was reddened, and the fact his skin was melting off of his body. Well, I brought it up to Suki on the way home, and she had told me that Shawa Abake is a yokai that primarily targets women and young girls that are very pretty while they shower, whether they are at home or in a place with access to public showers. And he'll play mind games with them, pretending not to acknowledge you, as long as you don't look at him and quiet your breathing while he's counting backwards from 10. Some say it's because he is lonely and just wants a friend as well as your attention. But others say he doesn't like being looked at directly in the face because of his burned appearance. And those who see his charred, grotesque appearance will suffer from panic attacks and die from fright. In life, he was a nervous and timid boy that didn't like being watched while showering or nor sharing the shower room with other boys. It is speculated that an intruder broke into the school, or a faculty member had done unspeakable acts against him, even went as far as rendering the boy paralyzed and poured acid on him, giving him a slow and agonizingly painful death. His remains were never found. If you fail to keep your eyes closed and hold your breath while he's counting backwards from 10, it will be considered an acceptance of his invitation to join him eternally in the spirit world, and you would suffer the same fate as him. I fortunately was lucky enough to have acted quickly when I did. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today writing this still. I then reached a restricted area of the school I had not noticed before for some reason. It was on the 5th floor. To my surprise, I saw that the locks and chains that sealed the withered oak door were lying on the ground. I then thought back to the night that Suki left to use the bathroom and Kenji had vanished. This door was isolated from the rest of the building, and it made me remember the story of Akamoto. My curiosity got the better of me, and I entered the restroom reluctantly. I had no choice at this point because I needed to use the toilet. I entered the last stall, and while I was doing my business, I heard the door to the room creak open all the way. The lock on the stall door I was in was broken, so any random person out of nowhere could just surprise me at any time. I silently sat and listened as the footsteps got closer and closer to the stall door. I then heard a deep voice ask as the footsteps stopped after a moment of dreaded silence that had gone by. The voice said, Translation: red or blue paper. Chills ran down my spine, and then there was a light knocking at the stall door. The only source of light was a light bulb that flickered above my head, and I was blinded by the remaining darkness in the room. The only other sound was water droplets trickling from the ceiling. The knocking got more aggressive and caused the entire stall door to rattle, and the voice asked louder than before, I covered my ears, but I couldn't block it out. I thought maybe it was Kenji coming out from hiding, and he was trying to prank me. But how was that possible? Then all of a sudden, as I shut my eyes, I heard the lock to the stall door click, and the door made a loud slam against the wall next to me. I slowly opened my eyes and saw a shadowy figure of someone wearing a gold mask, much like the ones you see worn in a theater performance, and they wore a red vest. The figure then asked again, I then remembered what Suki told me to say if being asked. I shut my eyes again and blurted out in Japanese, Nashi! Translation: none. I opened my eyes once more, and the figure was gone. I cleaned up and made a mad dash as I heard more footsteps and children's laughter. I could hear shrieking ghosts at my heels as I staggered up the stairs to the 4th floor. I kept running until I reached the 3rd floor, and without realizing, I ran into the other bathroom in my panic. I was panting heavily and saw that I was in the girls' bathroom. I should have turned around and left, but I needed to see it for myself. I walked up to the 3rd stall and gently knocked. I then raised my clenched fist again to knock a second time, but I hesitated. Was I really doing this? I took a deep breath and exhaled calmly before knocking again. The wind seeped through the cracks in the walls and carried whispers, as though voices from beyond were beckoning to me. Just leave, I told myself. Leave before it's too late. But I knocked a third time and then asked, trying to sound brave, Hanako-san, are you there? I waited and waited. No response. I sighed in relief and turned to exit when I saw Suki enter the bathroom. I stared at her in shock. She looked different. Suki, why are you... Suki's eyes shifted to the stall door behind me, and she slowly approached me, then smiled. I was worried about you, she said. I walked a long way to find you. Did your car break down again? I asked. She didn't respond, just stared at me intently. I was starting to get uncomfortable. The way she looked, wearing damp clothes all soaking wet like she'd been out in the rain, her frail body drained of all color. I walked over to her and asked, Are you okay? She just nodded and walked over to the stall door, opening it completely before staring down at the pit latrine in silence. I didn't know what was going on. Suki then spoke. What did you expect to find? She questioned. I was a bit perplexed. What do you mean? I responded. Did you think I was lying to you? She spat. What are you talking about? At this point, I was backing away closer to the exit, and she turned to face me. Kenji, she muttered in a bitter tone, then added nonchalantly. I really did see him get dragged. Hanako-san pulled him down into the latrine, practically ripped the poor bastard apart, leaving nothing but a blood trail behind. Hearing that, I was a bit shaken. Look, I believe you, okay? I said. I don't think you're crazy. But you have the perfect life. You have everything. You are beautiful and popular. I'm nobody. Everyone thinks I'm a weirdo. None of that is true, I said. Suki just sighed. So you're really my friend? She asked. I nodded. Of course, I replied back. Then we noticed water began to flood onto the floor as I turned slightly to face the stall, and Suki and I were speechless as we saw it coming from the third stall. A hand shot out of the huge hole in the latrine, and it waved at us before the lights went out. And Suki screamed. The light of the moon shone through a broken window, and I watched as my friend was laying on her stomach, getting dragged towards the third stall, about to get sucked into the toilet by the hands of a child apparition that had a face of anger as she wailed. I just came face to face with the yokai, Hanako-san. I was holding on to my friend's arms, trying with all the strength I could muster to pull her away. Then I remembered one strategy that provided some distraction in order for us to escape. I took an empty, small milk carton that I kept in my bag. According to legend, the yokai hates things that remind her of school, as school was where her life was cut short. With one hand, I threw the milk carton at the child's spirit, and the yokai released her grip. Suki and I ran from the building, and we never went back. Again, dear listener, I want to thank you so much for bearing with me for this long, and keeping an open mind, despite any skepticism that you might have. But I know that these things are real. This actually did happen to me. I don't care if you believe me or not. And soon, this story will come to a close, where I will share the most traumatizing, nightmarish encounter that I've had with another yokai that almost killed me. So stay tuned, and please, just be careful out there, because you never know what you'll come across. It just might stalk the shadows, stand in the corner of your room, watch you as you sleep. It may even lurk in your closet when you least suspect it. It may just follow you wherever you go. And it may never, ever, ever leave.